In the fourth quarter of 2023, I met with the CEO, and here's what she said. Darrell, we need more leads. Can you help us? Well, in 2023, they generated about 320 sales qualified leads. I want to be clear about what type of lead we're talking about. We're talking about someone who's inviting themselves into the sales process for this company. We're not talking about an ebook. We're not talking about a white paper. We're not talking about a webinar opt-in. We're talking about people who are booking sales calls. So we're finishing the year at the time of recording this video, and we are pacing 680 leads for the year, which is more than double. How do we do it? Stick around, and that's what I'm going to tell you about in this video. Hi, I'm Darrell Evans. If this is your first time here, this is the MindShift Podcast, and I, over the last 14 years, have helped companies and my agency at Yokel Local generate well over $300 million through one specific job that we get assigned to do, and that's to help them generate leads. Now, I also am the founder of the MindShift Inner Circle. For those that are not ready to work with our agency, we teach you exactly what we do in our lead generation playbooks inside of our community at the MindShift Inner Circle. You can see links below to either of those options if that's something you'd like to do. Let me take you back. So just over 12 months ago, I sat down and I was inviting myself into the world of this organization, which I have a tremendous amount of respect for, multiple million-dollar organization, and they were struggling with something that I see common with very established companies, and that is running playbooks that used to work, though the modern buyer has changed. Now, we're not going to talk about the buyer's journey in this conversation. We're not even going to talk about the tactics of what we did, although I'll give you a glimpse of what we did. But one of the things we do from a fractional marketing department standpoint, me serving as the fractional CMO, the one thing we always want to do, especially when a company has had a little bit of some challenges over the last couple of years in growing their business, is we generally don't ask for much more budget when we come in. So what we do is we want to look at something that we like to say are little hinges that swing big doors. It's a philosophy we call in our agency, optimize from the bottom. Okay, what that means is we are optimizing from the bottom of the funnel up towards the top of the funnel. Most marketing folks, most marketing agencies, most consultants, they start with trying to optimize from the top down. We started with where the problem lived. She said the problem was in the sales qualified lead category. So we're not talking about people who just want to show up and download an ebook, which they get plenty of those. We're not talking about someone who wants to show up to a webinar or show up to an annual planning session. Whatever those other lead generation opportunities are, we're talking about showing up where the money happens. So where did we begin? And what little hinge did we swing, or what little hinge that we put in place, that we optimized, that swung the big door this year? And I gotta tell you, we didn't do the vast majority of what you're probably thinking. Let me tell you what we didn't do before I tell you what we did do. What we didn't do is write a whole bunch of new blog posts. What we didn't do was increase the frequency of their social media posts on Meta or LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter. What we didn't do was change the cadence of their weekly newsletter. What we didn't do was add so much more budget that we could justify doubling the leads just on a pure cost per lead basis. In fact, we only increased the ad budget by 15%, but we were able to get 100% or more growth in leads. So you're probably thinking, Darrell, stop with the tease. What the heck did you do? And so here's the backstory. This is an organization that fortunately has been around for 4+ decades. And when you've been around for that long, you can sometimes forget about the little pieces of history that matter to a brand new customer that you're taking for granted that everyone knows about. Well, what they had several case studies, testimonials, tons and tons. After 40 years, you've got tons of happy customers. And the funny thing is we didn't use their most popular asset, which was an international best-selling book, which is also a little counterintuitive. You think we probably doubled down on their international best-selling book. We actually didn't do anything with the book. What we did was we leveraged the buyer psychology of the vast majority of their most successful clients who had had success in their program, in their company's delivery of services. We spent about 3 months digging into the buyer persona of their most successful customers. We looked at what we call the before and the after state. We looked at something called the problem that they were dealing with and where they were agitated that led them on the journey to solve their problem. Key point, we found people who were ready to solve their problem and what triggers that desire to solve the problem. That is something we do. Some people call it copywriting, some people call it buyer persona research. It is all of those things, but the reality is the little hinge that swung the big door was us starting from the bottom of the funnel and reverse engineering all of the biggest frustrations that these specific customers or clients had and how that manifested in their world. And then the one thing we did was we went back to the ad campaigns, which is where the budget was already allocated, and we holistically turned over the ad copy and the messaging to match the problem, the agitation, and then we excited them on an opportunity to solve the problem, which we call PAES, and then brought that into their day-to-day ad strategy. And not immediately, let me be clear, not immediately, because we had changed the copy. So we had to kind of reset what Google was doing. We had to kind of reset what Meta was doing. But within a couple of months, we started seeing a little bit of a liftoff. And we started seeing week over week, month over month, we were getting more and more inbound requests for sales calls. In their world, that's not what they call them, but they are sales calls. So this little hinge that we swung in 2024 is interesting because we will still double down on that in 2025. And there is some opportunity now for us to increase the budget and do better. What I will tell you is there was an inside benefit that we didn't encounter, and that is that we lowered the cost per inbound sales lead from $420 down to about $225. And that's what can happen when you optimize from the bottom instead of just pouring more money or more resources or more activity into the top of your funnel. And so if you're an established business who has somehow found that your lead flow is down, your customer acquisition is down, you are executing digitally, but maybe the tactics aren't seeming to map to the ROI and to the metrics that matter, which in this case were more inbound leads requesting a meeting to inquire about buying the service that this company offered, then what I want to encourage you as we wrap up this video is that it isn't often that you've got to do more. In fact, I'd encourage you to do less, but do what matters most. And what we can find when we analyze your history of marketing is that we come in with a fresh set of eyes because we are outside of the frame that you're sitting in every single day. And maybe that frame has served you well for 10, 20, or 30 plus years, as it was in this case, and many, many more of our existing clients at the agency. So how do we make this practical, right? So first things first is to accept the mind shift that it isn't necessarily that you've got to do more. It's about finding the right hinge that'll swing a big door in your next level of journey and growth with your lead generation. The second thing is you have to have a strategic marketing leader close by who can take with a fine-tooth comb to find the opportunities that can be leveraged instead of just throwing things against the wall to see if they stick. Now, these are words that I hear from many of our clients, CEOs, founders, and business owners who've hired multiple marketing people, folks, talent, agencies, consultants, you name it, but they just haven't found someone who's data-driven and who's good enough to look into the data and find those little nuggets that'll swing the big door. The third thing I would have you consider relative to this type of a conversation, if you're looking to double your lead flow, if you're looking to double your ability to serve new customers, is to remember that 2 times the result doesn't come from 2 times the effort, 2 times the input, or 2 times the budget. You really just have to get someone who has a good, clean history of understanding from a data-driven standpoint how to engineer that next level of growth. Now, if you're the type of person who has more budget, great. But before that, let's make sure we've optimized from the bottom to generate more leads. So this was a very interesting case study. We're very excited, by the way, to be continuing our relationship into the next year. And guess what our new goal is? To double once again. So right now, we have just finished looking at the little hinge that'll swing the big door in next year's results, in addition to our ad strategy, in addition to the rest of our marketing mix. But I'll save that for you on another video. And if you're interested more in growing your leads, again, there are 2 options below in the description wherever you're listening to this content, and that is going to be to come in and check out our inner circle where you can join and become an annual member, or you can reach out to our agency and have a conversation with me or someone on my team about how we can help you generate more leads and find those little hinges that swing big doors. We'll show you all the proof you need. We'll show you all the history we can show you. We've been around since 2011. We didn't just take a class last Saturday. I'll talk to you later on the next episode.